Hi guys. So for those of you that are new to the newsletter and these videos, every 2 weeks I'll be sending out a newsletter, and attached is going to be a video that is specific to my book and some element of my book. The last video was the only one so far that's come out. It was the very first one, and so I did an overview of my book and kind of a book review format as I would with any other books that I review on my channel. If you are new ever at any point or you missed some videos, they're all going to be a part of a playlist that I'll attach in the newsletter itself when it goes out. So if you ever need to catch up, or if you're new and you kind of just want to go back and see some of the older videos, that's how it's going to go. This week though, I am so excited because the topic is the magic system. The first book in this series is called Peace and Turmoil, so that's what I'm going to call it when I'm referring to stuff. So in the world of Peace and Turmoil, everybody has the ability to use magic. It's not like there are specific people that are sorcerers and sorceresses or anything like that. Everybody has the ability to use it, but it doesn't mean everybody can or that everybody is skilled at it. It's kind of like I have every ability to learn how to fight, but that doesn't mean I can fight at all, and it doesn't mean I know how to fight or that I'm good at it. That's kind of the same idea. Everybody has the ability to do it. Everybody can learn to do it, but not everyone does. The way it works though is within every person there are things called auroras, and every aurora is a different color, and people tend to associate those colors with various elements throughout the world. So the blue auroras or the white colored auroras, those kinds of things tend to be water or ice. The red and the oranges tend to be fire. Green and browns tend to be earth. Whenever people draw on their auroras, it's called calling, and their role, that's what they call it, is they call fire, they call water, that kind of a thing. And you can draw off of your own auroras to create elements, or you can use your auroras to connect with elements that already exist. So for instance, if you're around a campfire or something and then all of a sudden a fight breaks out, you can use your auroras to connect with that fire that exists. Or if you're in a battle in the middle of the forest, you can call on your earth elements to bring the tree roots to life and like use the roots to wrap around someone's ankle or something. You can't continuously use your elements though because it fatigues you. So anytime you call on your elements, you're going to become weaker and weaker and weaker until you can no longer really see them. It's not like characters have this limitless ability to use all these awesome powers. At some point they're going to get too weak to be able to use them. It doesn't mean that once you've used them up, you no longer have the ability to use them ever again. It's just that once you're fatigued, you're too fatigued to use them in that moment, you have to wait until you've recovered before you can use them again. Like with anything, some people find that they are more naturally inclined to use certain elements over others. So one character in particular, Guinevere, finds she doesn't have that difficult of a time using fire, but she has the hardest time controlling air. People believe that the environment you grew up around affects the elements that you tend to be better with. So for instance, if you grow up in the desert and you're around heat a lot, you might be better with fire. But if you grow up around the ocean, you might be better with water. And then sometimes you just have a hard time controlling them in general. Guinevere, for instance, the character I mentioned before, she, every now and then when she gets really angry or her emotions are really high, she has a tendency to just kind of burst a little bit and they just kind of come out of her, so her hands will get really hot and she'll end up burning the things that she's holding. Because everybody has the ability to tap into their auroras and call on their auroras, the world is definitely shaped by that. There's a nation that one of our characters comes from called Sedai that used to be held in slavery, and the way that they were able to keep his people in slavery was they had things called element shackles, which is this absorbent like metal that if you try to call on your auroras and you try to release elements, the metal will just absorb it. Similar metals are also used for armor, so soldiers aren't completely defenseless if they're fighting somebody who's extremely skilled with elements. There are also creatures in the book called fiends, and what differentiates fiends from just regular animals is that fiends have the ability to both use elements and also they can often absorb elements. And so if you're able to kill a fiend and you know that its scales are element resistant, you can use those scales in creating, you know, pieces of jewelry or just articles of clothing, things like that. You can also use those kinds of things to resist elements. There are some religious beliefs associated with auroras because when a person dies after 3 days, rather than their body continuing to decompose and rot, after 3 days their bodies actually fade into the different lights that they've been able to see within themselves their whole lives. That's what their body eventually will fade into once they're dead. Some people believe that the auroras are a person's soul, and then therefore they believe that that's the soul ascending into the afterlife when someone is dead. Going along with that belief, if somebody's auroras are ascending, it's considered extremely intrusive for anybody but maybe family and a spouse or something to try and touch the auroras. So there's definitely a lot of superstitions and religious beliefs centered around auroras. In particular, there is one entire nation, one entire kingdom that has an aversion to black auroras. Unlike all of the other colorful auroras, black auroras actually allow individuals to create weapons. I promise I did not steal this concept whatsoever, but for those of you that have read Way of Kings, it's kind of like the way they can call on shard blades and they can kind of make shard blades come into existence. It's similar to that. Not exactly the same, but it's similar. In order to use black auroras, you have to essentially be a master of that weapon already. So if you are calling the black auroras to create a crossbow, you need to know how to use a crossbow already. If you're calling them to create a sword, you already need to know how to use a sword. So in some ways, it's almost more difficult for people to be able to learn how to use black auroras because you have to be extremely skilled and trained in those weapons already. In other words, the muscle memory has to exist so strongly in that person that it's almost inherent, it's almost innate, it's a part of them rather than being something they have to think about. But on the flip side, for whatever reason, none of the characters really understand it or know, but for some reason black auroras don't drain people the way that all the element ones, all the colorful ones do. This particular nation that has an aversion to black auroras partially believes that that's proof that black auroras are tainted and that they're evil. The only use that you could get out of creating a weapon would be towards violence, and this particular kingdom is very peaceful. Most of the rest of the world, though, does not share that belief. They actually almost think the opposite. They think that fiends, those creatures that have the ability sometimes to absorb elements and to use elements and stuff, they think that these weapons are a gift from the creator in order to fight against those kinds of enemies. While black auroras don't drain people the same way that the colorful elemental auroras do, they do still drain them a little bit. And because of this and the fact that people still need to be trained in weapons before they have the ability to call on black auroras, regular weapons, which are called touched weapons in their world, they still exist. So they differentiate these different kinds of weapons, whether they're called, the kind that you create with the black auroras, or whether they're touched, which is just like, you know, something a blacksmith would make. Anyway, that's it. That kind of encompasses, I think, most everything to do with the magic system in Peace and Turmoil. It was definitely really fun for me to make. It was really cool for me to kind of figure out how would this affect the world, how would they defend themselves against this, what's the rules and limitations. So it was so much fun to make, and I gotta say, it makes for some really fun fights and action sequences. A big thank you to all of you for being a part of the newsletter crew. It makes it so much fun to get to geek out and talk to you guys about this. It's so fun to get to share this with you, and I appreciate so much your guys' interest and support. I'll see you all again in 2 weeks with some more sneak peeks. Bye, guys.